Yeah. Hey, Justin, don't start right away. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our town hall and virtual town hall on affordable housing in Sutter County. My name's Steve Smith. I'm the County Administrative Officer for Sutter County, and I'll do my best to moderate this event tonight. With us in the City Council chambers is 5th District Supervisor Matt Conant, and I have a few other speakers that we'll introduce as well in person and via online meeting. For those who have questions and comments that have not already been submitted, you can leave them on the YouTube live chat feature, and we will address as many questions and comments as possible. This past Monday, Governor Gavin Newsom announced an award of $6.7 million, award of a grant to purchase the Baymont Motel south of Yuba City for affordable housing. I do want to stress this is not a homeless shelter. We're talking about 62 units of new affordable housing, which is the first in Sutter County in a long time. The facility will be operated by a nonprofit agency, Habitat for Humanity, whose sole mission is to get people housed and to keep people housed. The facility will benefit a large number of senior citizens and other vulnerable populations. When we'll have more detail on that and can answer questions on that as well. So this will be a facility for renters who cannot afford market rental rates in Sutter County. Several weeks ago, Sutter County was approached by Habitat for Humanity Yuba Sutter with the idea of applying for a grant through the State of California Home Key program. This is not the same program that placed homeless individuals in motel rooms. This is a program designed to provide long-term housing, not as a brief resting place. There was a very short time frame to apply for this grant. Congress and the President approved the funding through the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. However, if California doesn't spend the money by the end of the year, it has to be returned. California has more than $600 million available to dozens of communities for projects just like the one we'll be talking about tonight. We can also take questions in general on affordable housing, homelessness, and other related topics. The work done by Habitat for Humanity and county staff to get the application done in a timely manner is very much appreciated. The property is in escrow and set to close by November 11th. However, the Board of Supervisors at their October 13th meeting will need, for that to be completed, will need to approve the project in full. So it isn't fully approved by the board at this time. The intent is that once the county acquires the property, it will be deeded over to Habitat for Humanity to operate as affordable housing for at least 55 years under the terms of the state grant. Before I introduce Joseph Hale and John Nicoletti of Habitat for Humanity, I'd first like to introduce Imelda Mendoza Flores of the Sutter County Public Health Division of Health and Human Services Department. She coordinates homeless services and programs in Sutter County and has a great grasp of what seniors and many others are dealing with when it comes to rental costs in this area. Imelda?
Good evening. My name is Imelda Mendoza Flores. I've been the homeless coordinator for the past 4 years for Sutter County. And I've had the privilege to run Better Way Shelter that was opened up on September 29th. We have great success. We've seen great success from Better Way. But I wanted to start with I am with Sutter County Public Health, and homelessness is a public health issue. Our homeless population is elderly and very medically fragile. So the services are very much needed. Many of our homeless, unfortunately, don't have a safety net, don't have a support system that can catch them. Many of us, we have family members that I know for a fact that should I fall into financial issues, my parents are going to be there. We have that support system. Unfortunately, not everybody has that. For various reasons, many of our folks, we've been able to collect a lot of data from our Better Way participants, and we're seeing many of these individuals that come from foster families. So immediately, they're born without that real support system that can catch them. So they're right off the bat, it's a tough start. And but even within all that, I wanted to share what we have done. So Better Way, we opened September 19th. I'm very proud of that. We've been able to provide services to 125 Sutter County residents. It's a 40-bed facility, 20 units, double occupancy. It's for 18 and over. It's a low barrier shelter. We operate under the housing first model, which means that we shelter you first, and then we offer services. And those services are varied. It could be from a simple, individuals have lost a lot of their documentation, ID. So if we just think of where can we go without an ID, really nowhere. Basic documentation. They don't have a safe place to keep these items. One of the number one thing that we hear at Better Way from the participants is, I feel safe, because the way we're set up, we have a 24-hour security on site. We have a shelter monitor that is there to provide those supportive services. We have case management. The case management team is comprised of a case manager and a housing navigator. So we all work in conjunction to address barriers. Again, some barriers are getting an ID and they're able to get a job. Others are much, much more challenging. We've had individuals, we had one individual, her name is Glenna. She's 74 years old, and she's a long life resident of Sutter County. She suffered from dementia, and she came to us. She was referred to us from Adventist Health right out. She didn't know who her family was, so we had to start from scratch. We didn't know who this person was, but we knew that she was a medically fragile individual woman. And so through our partnerships with Adventist Health, through our coordinated entry partners, we were able to find out who this person was and how we can help her. I can share that she has been successfully housed now she came to us in December last year, and she was housed within like 3 or 4 months into a single unit shared housing type of setting. And we soon found that that was not enough for her. So our housing navigator rehoused her into supportive housing, where she could get more attention, more medical attention that she needed. So this is what we do. This is what we do at Better Way and through our many partners through our coordinated entry system, Homeless Consortium. So we have housed 44 individuals since we opened. These are 44 Sutter County residents that are no longer homeless. The average age is 48. Glenna was our oldest, has been our eldest one that has come through the shelter. The average income is $528.33 per month that they come in. When you look at the average rent in Sutter County, it's $906 according to the federal government, HUD. $906 a month. It doesn't match up. So, we have a lot of work to do to close that gap. Many of our participants, our housing navigator gets very creative, and she's able to form relationships with local landlords so they can find permanent housing. Many prefer shared housing, just like the project that Home Key is going to offer, permanent shared housing where they have their own space, but they're able to share that common kitchen, that common area to support themselves. Remember, they don't have a support system. They don't have, so this is their support system. And what we find is, I wanted to share one more stat. So 44% of our our participants that come into Better Way are chronically homeless. What does that mean? That means that they've been homeless for over a year, or they've had 4 instances of homelessness in that time period. So it's tough. I'm very proud to say that 3 have obtained income since we opened Better Way. It provides a safe place for them to leave their things. They don't have to worry about their things being stolen. And so they can focus on the next steps. And that's what we all want to do. We want to end homelessness for individuals. So they're able to leave their belongings, and they know they're not going to be stolen. So they're able to focus. We partner with Sutter County One Stop to get them, they help with resume building, employment searching. And then we have our, through Sutter County Health and Human Services, we have a health navigator, public assistance staff that comes on site that can help them with CalFresh benefits or Medi-Cal. Often these folks, they use our emergency room as a primary care, and we don't want that. That is costly to the taxpayer and our county, after all. So we want to make sure that they establish medical care and primary care. So that's the very first thing that we do when they come in. They meet with their case manager, and immediately we get their documentation so we can get, so they can receive care and get a primary care established right away. So after that, if they feel ill, they can go to their doctor instead of going to our emergency room. We also have partnered with Adventist Health Right Out Street Nursing Program. They come on site once a week and to provide basic wound care. And again, that saves the hospital lots of money because we have definitely seen trips to the ER be reduced since we established that partnership a few months ago. So again, a benefit to our community. I wanted to share, so Project Room Key, that's the project that our CAO, Steve Smith, mentioned that was in place in early March. The first day that we opened was March 28th, and that allowed us to provide non-congregate shelter in motel rooms for the most vulnerable population, 65 and over, and medically fragile, those that have underlying conditions such as heart disease, upper respiratory issues, COPD. That's who Project Room Key helps. It's those residents. And so through Project Room Key, we have provided services to 60 individuals. 7 of those have been permanently housed. And the average age for Project Room Key is let me share this. Our oldest person in Project Room Key is 92 years old. We had a 92-year-old female that we were able to shelter and find permanent housing through Project Room Key. We have used 20 motel rooms, and we, again, do the same thing that we do a better way. We connect them to case management services, wraparound services, to to end their homelessness and connect them to permanent housing. So and I want to share this one particular story. So we have a family of 4 that came into Project Room Key. They were residents of Live Oak. So the family it's a family of 4. Rhiannon, she's 42. Dylan, 21. Gabrielle, 73. And she is on 24-hour oxygen. Daniel, 77, a veteran, and their pets. So they lost their house. Daniel, a veteran, lost his VA benefits. We're working on reestablishing those. And so they lost their income. Their house became foreclosed in Live Oak. So they became homeless. They started living in their car. And they heard about Project Room Key. They called our homeless hotline, and we were able to connect them to a hotel room right away to get them out of the elements and make sure that Gabrielle receives and is able to use her oxygen machine that she needs to survive. So we sheltered them, and then what we did is we moved Rhiannon and Dylan into Better Way, and they moved in sometime late June, and they became permanently housed about a month and a half later. They've been permanently housed for 2 months now. And so now we are working very hard with our partners through the VA to reestablish Daniel's benefits so we can get them connected to permanent housing. And that is who is going to be assisted by this permanent housing project, Home Key. So these are the families that this program is going to help and end their homelessness. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Nicoletti, would you like to speak on behalf of Habitat for Humanity, or we can begin with questions? We do have some coming in online, and then we have some that came in on email that I can go through before. Or if Mr. Hale would like to. And then we can also, Mr. Conant, Supervisor Conant, if you'd like to say a few words as well, so we can go through.
I would like to just point out that Habitat for Humanity has successfully housed many families locally in our community, and we have worldwide. We have a terrific foundation for international housing and focusing on getting people to a better place in their life financially, really through stability of housing. It's so important to us. But one of our highest standards of priority is just cleanliness and organization maintained. I think if you look at our project in Marysville, it's known as the Life Building Center. Apprehensive neighborhood, apprehensive city council. What's going to happen if we create this homeless emergency stay center, which is a much higher degree than what we're talking about here in terms of need to pay attention to particular people we're serving. It's been clean. You don't see shopping carts of stuff. You don't see people sleeping on the ground. People are getting services that help them propel to a better level. In our monthly classes, when we're not in a COVID environment, we serve about 400 plus people each month in those classes, and they range from checkbook balancing to how to treat a landlord to NAAA. It's really a big part of our culture. We have great partners. Habitat does not reach these goals and achievements alone. Hands of Hope have been first-class partners with us. They'll be present at this project in South Sutter. We work with the counties on many different projects. We have a great partnership going forward there. And then it's also really important for us to have a strong good neighbor policy where we are positioned. And we want that from the residents that stay in the houses that we help build, this project to be no different. And so one of the steps we want to take is to take that particular property, and I'll just say that Mr. Patel, the property owner, has maintained it in very, very good working order. This is as close to just turnkey as we can possibly imagine. One difference that we are going to change, though, is we'll add a fence, a security fence, but it'll be good looking across the front. We want everybody that comes to visit to be just a day visitor, no overnight stays, even if it's a grandparent or something like that. We want them to check in. We want the residents to be able to check in and check out so we are aware of any of their concerns. If there's trouble that has come from people that we are serving as our residents in our home units, that may affect the Chevron gas station next door or any of the immediate area, we want to know right away. We'll take care of that right away. It's something that we are really proud of because it's not so much for us to collect a small rent once a month. We develop a relationship, and we expect to have a long-term relationship with each of our partner families. That's just the culture of Habitat for Humanity, and this will be no different. We're very excited to see that we're filling a permanent housing need. So I think the activity will seem much calmer. We understand the differences in distances to downtown. So we do have our van, 15 passenger. We'll be routing it through several times through the week so they can schedule pharmacy, medical, grocery, those kinds of visits, even the library, those kinds of things. So we're of the belief that this class of people have income. They will pay rent, but they don't have income to buy a house in California at California prices. And with site control and with our faith-based mission, we can control how much they are burdened with monthly rent. And so with that, I think there will be a lot of excitement for people that are trying to find a place to live. They are very incentivized to be careful, to be good stewards themselves, because they want to stay. They don't want to give that up, because they're not going to be able to find something as affordable that'll have as many safety accommodations that you'll see. Our partners will be engaged with people throughout the month. This isn't see you later, shut the door. We'll be checking their rooms, we'll be checking their wellness, we'll be doing activities to help them feel less lonely, more connected, more community. That's us. I'll leave it at that.
I'd like to just start off with, first of all, when this whole thing was first brought up, I was really concerned about the project and I still have concerns about it, but I think as a whole, when you weigh the benefits and the negatives, it's a good project for the county and for the community and the city and the residents of the county. First of all, the one concern I had originally is here you take a property that's generating income for the community and you take it out, and it generates I think about $30,000 a year. Steve, isn't that right?
Actually, it was, no, it was including property tax.
Yeah, property tax, sales tax, and hotel stays tax.
It was around $6,000 to $8,000 per year.
Well, that's right. It would, yeah, but the property was undervalued as far as the property taxes go. So eventually it probably would have got up to around 30. But it wasn't generating that much revenue to the community or the county. There's no county money involved in this out of the general fund. That's a big plus to me as a looking at the finances of the county. Habitat Humanity is going to operate, as was said. They have an excellent reputation to doing a good job and keeping their properties up and maintaining them. And I have great hopes that that property's had drug and prostitution problems in the past, and it would be ironic that Habitat Humanity might actually clean that property up. And I'm hopeful that's what's going to happen. All other districts in the county, except for one, have some kind of a homeless or a plan for a homeless facility of some sort. And I'm not saying that that's why we do it here, but this is probably the only fit we've seen that actually fits in Sutter County. And we've looked for years to find some place that would work, that would have the facilities capable of handling it. And the other thing I see a benefit here is the people won't be near the residents on the back side of this property at all. And on one side you have the Chevron station, and the other side is an open field, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. But it's probably going to become an orchard or something. And behind it, of course, is residences. But don't forget you have a leach field that's between that and the residences, and then you have a rental space that will belong to the county, and no homeless are going to be in there. That's going to be, I assume we're going to keep that as a rental property.
Mini storage?
Mini storage, yeah.
Yes.
Supervisor.
It's going to stay as a mini storage, so you're not going to have, there's a significant distance between those people and the community.
Supervisor Conant, I just wanted to correct, Habitat will operate that as well. You mentioned the county
Yes.
will own it, but we won't. I just don't want people
Oh, yeah, yeah.
confused.
We aren't going to own any of it. Well, I guess technically we do own it, but the Habitat's going to operate it.
No,
Maybe I said that wrong.
we will quit claim it to them, so the county will not have any ownership interest at all.
Right. I have a whole bunch of little notes here I've made for myself. We have to give Brandon Barnes the tools he needs to get people out of the river bottom and get the help they need. That is not the place for people to live. I mean, the flood events that could occur there, and sometimes you don't have a lot of notice. And I know that in, I believe it was 97, during that flood, they found a body months later of somebody that they didn't get out. And I'm not saying that could happen again. It's possible. And it happened once, it probably can happen again. But he needs the tools to enforce the no camping ordinance that the county has adopted. And we need to get the people out there and the help they need. And without those tools, we can't enforce the ordinance we have already passed. And this is one of many tools. Some of the other tools, of course, is a day camping area we're working on, an RV camping area, and then, of course, we have Better Ways, and then this one. And they all have different functions and different needs. And I'd like to end with saying that the people that are going to be moving into this facility have skin in the game. They're going to be paying some rent, and I'm sure that Habitat Humanity is going to make sure that they follow the rules and do what needs to be done. And that's kind of my comments. And I want to hear some of the questions from the community next. Or you're probably going to say a few words.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm kind of going to just piggyback off several things that have been talked about this evening. Joseph Hale. And one of the, I think, most important things to understand is one of the biggest parts of this is going to be a hand up. This isn't going to be a handout. Habitat for Humanity is really about helping people to help themselves. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking at this as a permanent housing project, is these are not going to be homeless individuals. These are going to be people who are going to live in this facility. They're going to pay rent, and also they're going to have access to an organization such as Hands of Hope that are going to provide life skills, job opportunities. This is really a stepping stone to get these individuals to a better place in life. Because what the community has really already been dealing with is a large number of homeless. And we're trying to be able to work with Sutter County and to meet the requirements of the state, and also help these individuals and give them opportunities so they can get out of those environments. You mentioned code enforcement, and that's a big thing. one of the things that the law enforcement deals with is that they can't enforce. They can't enforce individuals who are living in someone's or living on the edge of a property on a sidewalk and in public areas. They can't say, "Hey, you can't be here," because they have no place to send them. And that's why there's shelters. And as they go through the processes of going into the shelters, building life skills, and then they become ready to move into permanent housing, they're already on that path. And they're already looking for improving their lives. Because the reality is the people who go into this project and stay there aren't going to be the people who want to stay homeless. They're going to be the people who've went into sheltering programs and want to change their life. Because you're still always going to have some level of individuals who may want that in life. But what it does is it gives the opportunity for law enforcement to say, hey, you're given an opportunity. These resources are available to you. Why are you not taking advantage of them? And then there's no excuse that they're just not here and they have no help, and that's why they're there. So it's really a way to better the overall community. And that's what we're trying to do with Habitat. I mean, for the last 30 years, or 27 years, I should say, we've done low-income housing. And many people throughout the community may even live in neighborhoods you guys are already in. We've done around, I want to say, 40, 50 homes throughout the Yuba Sutter area that many of them are infill. And these individuals live right next to you. You may not even know it because they've recovered their lives. We have yet at this point to have someone who's gone through our Habitat program to fail, because we don't just spend a little bit of time with them. We're with them year after year. We engage them constantly. And that's really the difference in the type of program that we bring to the community. So, and that's what we plan to do here. I know when people think of low-income housing, they see it be synonymous with cheap housing or slumlords or things like that, where the house is not upkept, no one's monitoring them, there's drugs, there's all those different elements. That's not the type of environment we keep. It's going to be more engaged. It's going to have activities. There will be no tolerances for any sort of criminal activity on the sites we have. This is going to be an opportunity, and we want them to take it to better their lives. And that's why we're going to make a lot of these resources available to them. So that's, I think, a big part of how this is going to be different than what I think some typical groups see when they're dealing with it. So I just want to kind of cover those ideas, and I know we're going to do some questions.
So right before we get to the questions, I'd like to introduce Scott Thurmond, who is with us via the internet. And Scott, maybe you could, Scott is a consultant who works on low-income housing projects, homeless projects, and a variety of grant programs in California. So Scott, maybe you could give just a brief summary on your side of this project, and then we'll get right to the questions.
Yes. So our team has been working on the application process with the state of California. And just one note within this, this process has been the quickest and the speediest process that we've dealt with as an agency. This is a process where on July 16th, this funding notice was made available. And we had to submit it actually by August 13th. So we had a very quick turnaround. And even for the closing process that we have upcoming, November 11th is the date that Steve had mentioned. And so we are currently working on providing documents to the state and making sure all of our ducks are in a row for that November 11th date. There is a possibility that we may close before that date, but that's the drop dead deadline that the state has given us. So we're in process of getting those documents together and working on the other details to become operational. And so that's what our team is focused on at this point. And we anticipate having most of what we need completed by the middle of this month. We anticipate that there might be more requirements, but we think we'll have most of what we need by the middle of this month. So that's where we are in the process currently, and we'll continue working on those items.
Okay, thank you. And we have a few folks in attendance, and maybe I can start with questions here. I'll repeat them so that those online can hear them. And that, oh, we have the podium? Okay, great. Then you can approach, if you have questions right now, please feel free to approach the podium. Thank you.
Doreen Fuller, 1020 Oswald in Yuba City. You know, I support the concept of having remedies for those who are homeless, and I appreciate all your collective effort in trying to find a solution. And it's heart-wrenching that people end up homeless, families end up homeless, that our elderly and our veterans end up homeless. But in the surge to get this done, there are a lot of questions that citizens have, that I have, and I don't know that everything has been considered. Some of the questions I have, and I submitted them in writing, I have a few more that I've added since coming here, but you know, what was the decision-making process on this? And what was the community involvement in developing the grant and in establishing the elements of your successful grant application? You know, and is this a done deal, a fait accompli? And, you know, have there been public hearings on this so that the community knows what it is you're trying to do? And then I have questions about site selection. You know, what were the criterion for selecting this site? And who decided those criterion? And were other sites considered? Certainly, as Matt said, there have been considerations in the past about how to solve the problem of homelessness, but they didn't come with $7.5 million that you're going to get. And now you're going to get $7.5 million. Some of those old solutions or old locations might be good locations. What about other hotels that are located closer to services, that are more accessible for walking, that are more accessible for food services and restaurants and something other than Dollar General? You know, what about those locations, and were they explored? Why was this specific site chosen? I'm curious about that. Why was it chosen? Why is it that all of a sudden in the newspaper we read about something? I mean, out of the blue. Yes, we hear about CARES Act. Yes, we hear about money coming to the community, but why this solution without any community involvement? And I appreciate that there's a 15-passenger van, but there is no public transportation in that area. And I can't imagine children and truckers mixing well. It's not to denigrate truckers. It's just a busy place. It's one of the busiest intersections. Oswald and 99 is one of the, well, Route 20 and 99 is busy too, but it is a busy intersection. And so I just, the site selection has me stumped. And then the other aspects that I don't know about, the hotel sold for $870,000 in 2012. It was refinanced in 2019 for $2.6 million. Is the whole grant going to cover purchasing the hotel? You know, how do you go from 2.6 to 7.2 million? How did the hotel gain $5 million in value in 1 year? So I'm curious about how that was decided, and perhaps I don't know, because I only know what I read in the paper. Perhaps that $5 million goes $1 million for the first year to operate, $1 million to the second year to operate, and that might be something you can answer. But what about year 55? If that hotel, if we're taking that property off the tax rolls and giving it to a nonprofit, that's for 55 years. What happens in year 50? I mean, we're going to be dead and gone, everybody in this room. So what are the provisions for caring for that property, in 2070? And not to demean anything that Habitat does. My son used to work for Habitat for Humanity, so I have great respect for that, for the organization. But as a county, what are we accepting for 50 years? And let's see, what else do I have here? I'm wondering if the sale of the property, and this isn't, I don't have a dog in this fight, but others that I know do, if the sale of the property took into consideration current property line disputes that are in legal litigation now. So, the site selection, the decision-making, the process for it, the lack of community involvement, and the cost of the site, those are main concerns that I have. And I know that my neighbors have the same concerns, although they may state them themselves. But if you have answers to any of those tonight, that would be great.
So I can speak up some, and then maybe Habitat could talk about the properties and how that property was approached. So as mentioned previously, this program was released in July. Habitat for Humanity approached the county and said, we've been looking at hotel type and apartment building properties to use for possibly convert to low-income housing, and we have some locations to consider. But to apply for the grant, you have to be a city, a county, or some other type of governmental organization, and Habitat asked for the help of the county. I'll skip a little, and then maybe Habitat can answer some of those in-between questions, but this went publicly to the board, I think August 11th or somewhere in there, for the approval to apply for the grant, but it stated generically a hotel property because there were still a couple properties that could be considered. And if you come forward and say, hey, we want this one particular property, then you've just ruined your negotiation process, which I'm sure you could understand. So once the decision was made to apply, and then there was a closed session per government code that the board would make some decisions in, and that was probably the first time the name was posted because it's a requirement of law for the property to be identified. So we knew as soon as that posted, then, but before that, staff or supervisors can't say anything about closed session. It's a misdemeanor. So as soon as that happened, then we got ready to schedule this to reach out as soon as we can. I would agree in the past, and typically when we have these projects, like we had a project for Better Way, which we mentioned has been operating for a little over a year now. We had, a year-long process? But that was a county-funded, not a grant program that was gone through the state. And this was an urgent opportunity. And I believe the state received about double the requests that they could fund out of the, $600 million? So that's just some background on that. And then I didn't know if one of the Habitat folks would like to address kind of the process on looking at the different facilities.
One other thing on Better Ways, another reason we had so much outreach on Better Ways is it wasn't a purchase of property or anything. It was county owned and operated already. So we didn't have to, we could be much more inclusive on the community. When you have to do a property negotiation, by law, the county has to keep that totally confidential.
So I get the timeliness of the grant, and I'm glad somebody took advantage of it, and, thanks to Mr. Thurman for whatever his role was in helping to prepare that grant. So I get that, and I get that you have to say a hotel. Why this hotel? Why not another hotel? Why specifically this one?
Maybe.
So one of the situations that happened, and I wanted to kind of address your earlier question about like reaching out to the community for feedback and those elements, because that is incredibly important when you're doing any project, because you want to have the community involved in what you're doing, and you want to have that buy-in. That is a very important element. One of the things that was put together as a result of a lot of the homeless issues that have happened over the years was the Homeless Consortium was put together about 4 years ago. And through those 4 years and doing public hearings over different times for different projects, we've culminated a list of a great number of concerns in the community as far as what things are most important to people in addressing these types of situations. For a lot, when it comes to dealing with at-risk populations, the biggest concern was around schools, families, that live in neighborhoods, was around, there was a number of factors that were concerns for individuals. So one of the things we looked at is for a location that would have the least impact on the overall community. The Baymont, though it didn't have transportation, was a little further out. So we felt that would give it the least impact on the community. I know Mr. Conant had some concerns too, because that's in his service area, that what type of individuals are going to be there, how is it going to affect things, because we want to make sure we keep everyone safe and protect everyone. And one of the things that was made is that we want to see individuals. There's a program called Better Way, which takes people in who are experiencing homelessness, works with those, and then there are a number of those who, once successful, get moved into areas of housing. Some of them are just moved into apartments or moved into, maybe joined together, move into a house that could be next door to anyone else because they're community members just like everyone. And of those groups are really the people we want to take into this program, get them into a program, find out, make sure they want to be successful, make sure they want to repair their lives and become a benefit and someone who contributes to our community. And then get those people into this type of program and circulate them through that. Because you're right, you don't want to take an individual, move them into an area that's just going to make it difficult for the community. So that's really a lot of what we looked at. So it was really taking in the last 4 years of public hearings, community input to figure out what was the consensus of what the community has addressed over the years. And then the focus became finding a location that felt that it would be within that. And even though the grant came very quickly and it made it possible, we'd actually spent the last 2 years trying to find a good location to provide this service so the community, Sutter County, can do its code enforcement. Police aren't feeling like there's one arm tied behind their back when they're trying to find locations for these individuals, so they're not sleeping in front of someone's business, they're not sleeping, near a school or in some place that other vulnerable populations live. And that's why this location was chosen.
Regarding the number of,
What I heard you say was that you'd make fewer people angry by choosing South Sutter, where it's more isolated. And I know that's not what you meant to say. And I know that you got the grant probably because of that 4 years of working in a consortium and having public meetings and having meetings to address the issue. Is it the best for the homeless? It might be the best for not taking complaints from neighbors, but is really the best location for the people that you're going to serve.
I can address part of that if you don't mind. One other thing is that the property has to be for sale too. I mean, we can approach different properties or Habitat can about buying them, but not every property is for sale or wants to be sold by the owner. But in regard to the homeless, we have been working with the Homeless Union, which is formerly homeless people that have organized and have been helping the homeless community. And there are actually some homeless advocates from various regions, but I'd say primarily the Sacramento and Chico region that have come to meet with us as well. And they stressed that what would be best for the homeless would be to have something a little bit out of town where they are not, they called it reintegrating them into a home culture from a homeless culture. Now, that isn't necessarily one for one on what, or the same thing of what is happening here, because this is low-income housing and not a shelter. But they did talk about how when you're operating a shelter, you need some isolation and that you're not just going to put them in a new house or something like that. Again, maybe that isn't a one-for-one explanation for you, but that was one of the desirable qualities. I don't think that necessarily led to the selection of this. It is just something for your reference if you're, wondering about shelters and steps in between that and getting into affordable housing.
Steve, Doreen also had a question about the finances of the project and the cost of the project. I don't think we've really addressed those thoroughly yet either.
Sure. So the county has a contract with a commercial real estate firm named Turton Commercial Real Estate in Sacramento. And they're a very experienced firm, and we contracted with them about a year ago, so it wasn't just for this project, but they have been helping out with this. And I don't want to misspeak. I thought they were initiating or had initiated the appraisal. But is that okay. So they initiated the appraisal, and the property appraised for a little over the asking price, maybe 40 or 50,000.
Yeah, well, it was $7,263,000 is what the total appraisal came to.
Okay, and we had a tour of the property, and so I don't know if the refinance in 2019 was for the full value of the property or if it was a partial value refinance. What I can say is we walked the property, and about 2/3 of the rooms are completely remodeled. They're in excellent shape, look brand new, and the remaining rooms, the supplies to remodel them are in the storage area. And so with the condition of the hotel, there's solar along the whole southern side, 150 feet of solar panels, whatever it is up on the roof. So again, I'm not an appraiser. I just know that there was a proper appraisal done and that it came out to the $7.26 million.
That was pretty convenient.
May I address the number of hotel questions? So when we first agreed that we would pursue this idea, I was tasked with reaching out to as many hotel and property owners as we could to solicit interest in selling their hotel. And so I did do that throughout the city of Yuba City and other parts of Sutter County. This hotel was not on a for sale listing. And when I sent a letter, the owner, Mr. Patel, read through that and had questions. And when he understood the quest of what we were after, it's actually something he's actually very active in the Stockton area. He's got a hotel down there that he actually deeded to the community for purposes that are very similar to this. And just felt that there would be a positive for the community indeed. So, I think I want to, help understand how I function through our habitat design. So we have 4 different categories that we look at for the definition of homelessness. And now Ymelda touched on it, everything is around housing. Everything is a housing first effort. We realize that through housing, that your health improves. If there's a family involved, your education improves because there's stability. And so we have emergency stay. That would be our Life Building Center in Marysville as an example, has 25 beds, police, Adventist, even people coming in from the cold can register, get an emergency place to stay, and then they get immediately processed into our system. And so there's an interview process. We identify their challenges, their needs. We prioritize those needs, and we start matching up the services. So you'll see a couple of dozen different partners or entities inside the Hands of Hope Shield. And so it's not one group, it's a full suite of services that goes around the whole person. So that's level one. Level two is transitional. It's where we have people stabilized, they're collecting services, but we're still focused on housing. And Better Way and 14 Forward both add up to 80 beds in our region that are places where you're safe, you get food, and you're out of the elements, and then you can focus on yourself. And so the acceleration of them getting back on their feet, even if it's a first and last month's rent, sometimes it's all folks need. Many folks are employed. They're just underemployed. And so we have emergency stay to transitional stay to permanent supportive. So permanent supportive means we want permanent living, but they are not going to be completely independent. They do need the services of the county. They do need the services of faith-based nonprofits. They do need help to stay in that condition and sustain themselves. That's what this is. And then we have home ownership. So if we can get people to home ownership, that is the best of all worlds because you create economic independence. And so at Habitat, we work through that entire chain, and so we can identify people that we are working with and where they're best suited. And then with our strong partnership with the counties, and it's both counties, it's truly regional, we just do the services that we do that lead people to the best place where they can be most prosperous. I think that's really important because this methodology that's established now, the strength, it's not government by themselves, it's not faith-based communities by themselves, it's a full team. And I firmly believe from the results that we've seen, statistics we're tracking, you're going to see a noticeable reduction in the element of homelessness as an overall, not one particular category, but the overall. And we're addressing them as it goes. With the help of law enforcement, it just makes it more efficient, but they can't do it by themselves, and Health and Human can't be expected to do it by themselves. It doesn't work, but these systems are working.
Mm-hmm. Well, I commend your efforts. I don't want to detract from them at all or detract from this effort. I mean, it's something the community needs. I still question site selection and the process for that site selection. And the other question I have was are there kitchens in these rooms? Are there cooking facilities in these rooms? Because I haven't been to the hotel.
So hot plates, microwaves, refrigerators. Some of the rooms have a bit more than that, but they are able to sustain that. The food bank is interested in supporting. And I do want to mention too, Scott Thurman mentioned this early on, that there was a very short window. There really is not time to construct. There's only time to purchase and flip use quickly. It's part of the factoring. So this application with the state is hundreds of pages. It isn't a quick, easy fill-out sheet. And to fill out those pages, most of what is embedded in those pages is proof of capacity for the nonprofit to fulfill these requirements and responsibilities. So even though this day comes and this hotel process happens and this whole thing comes to being, that isn't where it ends. The state is very closely monitoring each of the benchmarks that we need to meet. So it's great that we have policies and standards for Habitat, and they work, but we're not going without oversight. We'll be heavily looked at to make sure that the.
And how will your budget increase to be able to handle this additional capacity? I mean, because running a hotel or a permanent housing solution, a permanent supportive situation, is going to take more people than you have, I'm sure. And it will. And so where do those funds come from? I mean, I can't imagine that the county isn't still on the hook for some of the maintenance of this. And whether it's from community organizations or faith-based organizations, the county is still going to be involved in, funneling's not the right word, but in granting you funds to be able to run this facility. So even though it's being converted over to a nonprofit, it still comes at a cost. And one would say we still have a cost of homelessness at the river bottoms and in town and at our ERs. So some of that will alleviate or be remediated by this. But there will be additional costs for your agency. And I had one other question about, and I didn't mention it before, was Sutter County Sheriff. I mean, this is not Yuba City Police Department. This is Sutter County Sheriff. We have a hard enough time now getting a highway patrolman or a sheriff when we call. Not that they're not responsive, but there's only so many of them. So that would also be a concern.
Right.
I only came back up because I forgot my pencil.
I can answer some of those. So one of the things that we do is there is going to be some rental income from the units that'll help generate some of the funding. One of the reasons we were keeping the storage units was to also generate an additional source of funding. You are correct. That doesn't cover everything. What we also have is we have a restore that generates income for the region and it all goes into housing. So all the money that it gets generated in the store in Marysville goes into some form of housing, for whether it's home ownership housing, permanent housing, whatever those elements are. The goal, of course, is to always seek grant funding, but that's kind of our backup. So if we aren't able to get grant funding, we have that as our safety net in order to keep these services going. There are monies. I know a big worry is that tax dollars or local funds or things like that would get used on this. There are grant funding that is always allocated by the state to various communities for the specific purposes of doing programs like this. So we would definitely seek those state funds out to try and help keep this going. But in the cases where we may not acquire that because everything is competitive, we would use that restore as a backup. So once the partnership with the county comes to fruition, we would be in that format. So the county wouldn't be taking tax dollars from individuals in the community to help fund that program. So it would. Sure. Oh. I was going to also address the cost. So we talked a little about the appraisal. Typically, just kind of talking about hotels, I know back in 2012, there was a mention of like the $800,000 that it was purchased for, and then a couple $1 million that was used to reinvest in it. One of the differences is even though someone may have gotten a real great deal when they bought it years ago, because in 2012, like 2010 to 2012, everything was incredibly inexpensive, right? We were going through a time where people could buy a house for 3 times less than what it has gone back up to today. Mm-hmm. So that's probably a factor in what's seeing some of those concerns. But what we do is we do go off of the appraisal. In fact, the state won't pay more for a property than its appraised value from an independent appraiser. And we did acquire an independent appraisal, and we offered just slightly less than what that amount turned out to be.
And one other point is there's some other regional housing projects that for affordable housing that were approximately $335,000 per door. If you go down into areas like San Jose, you're looking at $700,000 per door. But we have one regionally that's being built, not regionally, in Yuba City, that we're thankful to have, but is being built for about $335,000 per door. If you look at the price with this, it's about $115,000 per door. So it's about a third of the cost of putting together a program and building it from the ground up.
I wanted to address.
And Steve, if I can add in also.
Oh.
Steve, if I can add in also, the cost per door from other projects that we see in the region is about average. So it's very similar to what you're seeing in other jurisdictions that are under home key.
I wanted to address the concern about the families. So this, in our homeless continuum of services, we have, through Health and Human Services, we have our CalWorks housing support program that is specifically for families that are homeless. So we already, as John Nicoletta mentioned, through coordinated entry, we are able to assess those individuals and connect them to the services that are more appropriate to provide those services. So for example, families, they would be immediately directed to the housing support program through CalWorks, and both counties have this type of funding. And the funding works in very similar ways. They provide assistance for moving costs and rental assistance. So the home key is more for those families that we are currently providing services through room key, which are the 65 and over, elderly, medically fragile, that just cannot afford to come up with $2,700 to move in, because usually you move in and they're going to want, a landlord is the first and last month's deposit. It's expensive. So this is what this project is going to, this housing, permanent supportive housing, this is who they're going to provide services for. So I just wanted to address the families.
And let me just add in there, we do anticipate that the vast majority of individuals will be singles that will be served at the site. So we have another stream of services for families.
Mm-hmm.
So we're anticipated, somewhere between 95 to even 100% would likely be singles.
Okay, my name is Manjeet Bungle. I'm at 1020B Oswald Road, right behind the hotel or motel. And I want to say thank you for, what you guys are trying to do. I just don't believe this is, Doreen said, the right location. Because his service, she's explained everything, the reason why I've got a lot of the same reasonings, why I'm kind of upset about this whole thing. But my concern is this motel has people coming and going. So they're not permanent residents. You guys are aware there's a septic system. Is that septic system going to be able to hold these people that are permanently there now? Like I said, when you're going to a hotel, and we've seen how many people go. They're busy on the weekends. They're not busy during the weekday. So how are you guys? Have you guys thought about updating? What's the process on that?
So I can answer that question. There was also something I can add into that. I know you had asked about the property line issue. I know with the situation, we are having the septic looked at, and we're going to make modifications to make sure it's running correctly when it comes into use. That was something we've been actually actively even looking at today. We do understand that. The difference between with the hotel and having permanent stay, and then the size and its capacity. So it's actually going to get drained, cleaned out, go through the process. They're going to go through a investigation and make sure that it maintains the capacity to do the job. We did hear stuff that there was a little bit of water that was running over into other properties and things like that. That was a concern that we're going to make sure is alleviated. There was also an issue with, I think, a fence line that's going to be getting adjusted to make sure that it's where it's supposed to be for the other homeowner. I think that would be you in this case.
That would be me. Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So most definitely, we're going to make sure. One of the things our organization is it's very important to us is to run a very professional business and make sure everything's at capacity and being done right. When it comes to those things. So we try to be the best neighbors we can, and definitely take into consideration issues and things that the community wants to see happen. So,
Okay, my other question is, I think this gentleman in the blue had mentioned security gates in the front. For what reasoning are we putting security gates in the front?
Mainly that we would like to see everybody come through the lobby. We want to see who's coming in, who's coming and going. We want to have a tighter control on that, if you will. Overnight, there will be 2 people, one manning the front, one circulating the property, making sure we don't have company that we don't want to have. We are very concerned about a successful outcome, and we think a big part of that is, are we going to manage it well? And so we measure that really closely. We work with our partners with Hands of Hope very closely. We have found great success before, so we're just employing those same measures of security first, safety first.
Okay. My other question is, I know these homeless people do not like to follow rules. I know that as soon as they enter the program, like I said, they're going to be at their best and say, hey, we're going to do this. They've got benefits coming from this. Like I said, when we have neighboring residents, we have a problem when I shouldn't have to be babysitting those residents. I've got enough problems as I have with the truck drivers around that area that now I've got to babysit these people coming into my yard. I've got grandkids. We've all got people that we have to worry about. To me, it seemed like, okay, now I've got to babysit them, call you guys, your residents are in my property. I mean, there has to be, like I said, it's,
For me, the residents becoming a nuisance for your property would be a real surprise being the back, and I'll tell you why. The building is a C shape. You don't really have access to the backside where the storage units are. Those are completely aligned with metal fencing that are secured, that we hold the locks for, that nobody has a reason to go beyond those barriers. And if you got out of the building and came around and had the code to get back into the mini storage area, you would then have to navigate your way through metal fencing that is, it looks like security fencing. It has spikes at the top, and I just don't see that from an elderly person's standpoint, number one. So I think that part is fairly stable. My concern is it has been a public access facility for many years, and it'll take time for people that are transient and coming and going to learn that this has a different use. It's a much calmer use. There'll be curfew, and we visit in the room with folks, and so the other side of it is the nature of homelessness. So these folks aren't coming from bushes to this permanent home. There's the processes, as I described, the 4 different levels of homelessness in total, really describes that these people they're advanced. They're in a relationship with a caseworker. They understand each other's needs. They have a history of consistently being worthy of getting this opportunity. And then the other thing is, they can afford this. That is not something that's going to be easily found outside of an environment where a faith-based nonprofit is. And so they don't want to lose that spot. They want to conform. And we it's part of the interview process. We want to make sure that's something that they really respond to, and they want to be on board with this community and be respectful of their own neighbors and that kind of a nature. I think you're going to see something that's really pleasant. I really do.
I did want to piggyback a little bit off of what John had said. One of the things that happens is it's typically always the smaller groups that make it bad for the rest of everyone else. And so we identify those same groups we call it like the 20% who are out there urinating or defecating in front of someone's door, doing something very inappropriate that they shouldn't be doing. And those are really the individuals who aren't going to, I don't think, make it to this point, because they're going to have not made it through the sheltering process. They're going to have not made it through some of these other elements because they don't want to comply. Exactly. And we're going to have those. And that's the people that the police need to be able to do code enforcement on, which gives them the opportunity because now they have places to go and now they're just fighting the system, right? So that's really something that we definitely see, and we know a lot of people see, and that's kind of their experience with homelessness. Whether it's someone breaking into someone's fence, whatever they're doing. And our goal is to help the people who want help, because we truly can't help those who have no interest in being helped. So, and one thing that Habitat does, just like our home ownership program, before they ever get the opportunity to own a home, they're partnering with Habitat. We're doing home visits. We're working with them as an individual, trying to find out what their situation is. And then they go through a long process with us to get to the point, because we want them to put an effort too, because we don't want to do a handout, because handouts typically are self-defeating. But if you give someone a hand up where you're like, you give 100%, we're going to give 100%. We're going to work with you to get to the point where you could be successful, then it's a very big change. And I think you'll see less of that. And if it does come that someone is acting that way or behaving that way, we're going to make sure that our phone number, our facility is available to be contacted by those in the community. And I know you were mentioning police not being able to get out there, but we're definitely going to give them a call, go get them, talk to them, and ask them, and make sure that's not happening. I don't really see it happening. I can't say it won't, because we don't always predict people's behavior. But if something like that we're going to definitely make our contact information available to handle that situation immediately. That's not something we want to see. That's not something we want as the reputation of Habitat. We believe that we can be good neighbors, and that's our number one job when we're managing these types of programs.
Why was Yuba City chosen rather than Marysville, since you guys have a location in Marysville? Can you explain that?
We pushed to do the same effort in Yuba County, and with the impacts that are occurring with local governments through COVID, it is something that I've not experienced government staff members complaining, but they are stretched beyond normal, way beyond. And we see it at every level, whether offices are closed, we're losing access. I would say that it would take so much work and dedicated time. Honestly, Thurman Consulting have first-class team members. I mean, these folks know how to work hard, and they are very experienced. They very, very front edge on some of the best we've seen through consulting firms. Joseph is a guy who manages millions of dollars in grants and reporting every year. I mean, we were fast, but it took us like 8 days and night. I mean, the county council Sunday night was on the phone with us, Health and Human Services. I mean, everybody's working way beyond normal limits to try to pull something together. And Yuba County just didn't feel they had the capacity to put on top of their current responsibilities and issues that they were involved in to cut that much effort and time away for one specific project. Not every county in the state went for the money. They certainly added up. There was a program that started with an overall $600 million, $500 million for properties. There was like $1.2 billion that applied for that $500 million stack. And so it's all throughout the state. There's many, many properties that did it. But ours came in early, and that was a consideration. It was very complete. That was a consideration. And this property, having the property owner leaving the facility in very, very good condition, knowing that we could immediately service people that the county is currently servicing. And if you can imagine, we're paying daily hotel rates for these people to be served right now. That's going to switch from $100 plus a night to $300 a month. I mean, it's a significant difference in affordability, yet we're achieving all of the same results in terms of keeping people's lives calm. I mean, if it was news that these people got rowdy and tore up the hotel rooms, you would know it now, because they've been in the hotel rooms. We're just moving it into a much more affordable, much more manageable sequence, actually more community.
All right,
Mr.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I have you had a great question, and one thing that I want to clarify is that even if there was a project in Marysville, it wouldn't affect this, because this project is for Sutter County residents. So it's not like, there isn't one in Marysville, so a selection of those folks are going to be put into this low-income. It's not. They have to be Sutter County residents, I believe, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank
They-
you. Appreciate it.
I do have one question so far that was submitted online. It says, what about those who have been living at the Baymont within the last year and would become homeless if we had to leave?
So I can go ahead and answer that. I do know the property owner. I know some of the residents are actually employees, and I believe some of them will be moving with the property owner to a new location. If there are any individuals who are living there who are currently Sutter County residents, it doesn't mean they wouldn't qualify for the program to be able to stay. The goal is not to make people homeless in order to put some other people in there. So that's not the goal with this. So I imagine if they're low income and they're living there, we would just qualify for them for the program to be able to stay. Or if they have another place, they may choose to move to a different location, but that would be at their desire.
And just to clarify, how do we establish residency is we look at where, several things. If they are currently receiving benefits, where are those benefits coming from? So individuals that may come from out of county, they would not be eligible for this program. The other thing is we look at where did you spend most the last month? Where did you sleep? And so we look at several things just to address the residency question.
Can I speak? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I'm waiting for you to finish. My name's Ronnie Rye. I actually work for the County of Sutter, and I've been there for 26, 27 years. And so I was very surprised by this. I live down the road from 1020B and A, so I'm kind of all the way down. Anyway, so, and there's been, you know, of course, over the years, a lot of the trucking issues and all of that stuff. And it's been disappointing, yet I'm always open for new business and don't like to go against the grain of progression and things like that. So, so I've always kind of let that kind of, okay, well, trucking's been here for a long time, it's never been an issue. And I'm also really deeply care for people and your, the Habitat for Humanity sounds amazing. I just want to ask, you know, are these people going to have bikes so they can bike down the road? Is there going to be drug testing? Is there some kind of protocol? That's how we know what to expect. You know, if you're saying it's not a handout, so is there going to be drug testing for illegal drugs? Are they going to have bikes? Is there, like you said, is it age? Is it all seniors? Because I kind of, you're saying that, but it'd be nice if we had something in writing, what your policies are and things like that. So we don't, you know, you don't think that we're just being horrible to homeless, because that's definitely not the intent. And the services are really, you know, is what scares me, because I thought it was going to be for families, and there's no schools close by. Highway 99, that spot there, I've seen people die right in front of me. I've been there, living there for 30 years. And I mean, I would definitely need an overpass right where that spot is, and then I would not even, you know, question all of this. I just feel it's not a safe place. I know the motel's been there for a long time. So can anyone, is it every homeless person? But you're saying it's not, but what I'm kind of picking up between the lines, it is all the homeless people that you're taking in.
I think most that's all you.
Yeah, so what it is so a better way, and let me tell you, I don't know if you've had the opportunity. Unfortunately, we can't. We when we opened, we were offering tours of Better Way so folks can go and look at it and experience and feel what that feels like. And due to COVID, unfortunately, we just can't do that. But once we reopen, it would be wonderful to go and tour it. And one of the things, and the reason I bring that up is because with Better Way, we haven't had issues with our neighbors, and there was a lot of concern about that with our neighbors, the RV trailer park next to us, and we are on the campus of the behavioral health facility, and we this is what makes it different. It's that the staff addressing those issues right away. When they come in, they get a tour and they understand what the expectations are. The same thing with the Baymont. One of the things that we do, that we, our housing navigator, is we provide post-housing support, which in turn is homeless prevention. And what that looks like is we have staff checking in on them, making sure that they are being good neighbors at Better Way. And this will immediately translate into this permanent supportive housing over at the Baymont. Staff go and check on them. We're going to work very closely with our partners, Habitat and Hands of Hope. There is going to be a staff person or a person from Habitat that is going to be there 24 hours a day. So there's oversight. Right now at Better Way, we have our shelter monitors that provide the same service, and their job is diversion and, de-escalation. That's what they do. So we're going to employ the same concepts into this project. And I expect the same results that we've seen at Better Way. And so we are going to prioritize who comes into this project, and that is based on age and vulnerability, definitely.
Question is, could we have a copy of your policies or how people qualify to be on your program?
Sure.
That's what we'd like to have.
Okay, so what we have, we can share through, and we're following the homeless, the coordinated entry rules that have been in place since 2018, where we assess the vulnerabilities, and so we can definitely share that. We're following those same protocols. We establish the priorities, and it's always those that are, it's the elderly and the most vulnerable, medically fragile. So definitely we can share that. And that's already online through the Yuba Sutter, or the Sutter Yuba Homeless Consortium, the COC website. Those have been in place since 2018, and that's what we've been operating. All our shelters, all the continuum of care service providers, from Coordinated Entry, Hands of Hope, Better Way, and now Home Key. So they have been in place, but we can definitely put the link.
And do you take volunteers?
That's, yeah.
If this is going to happen, which I don't want it to happen, but if it does, what a great way to keep an eye on your neighborhood and take care of the elderly, because that's actually one of my passions. That would be, if you could answer.
You put a smile on my face.
So if I can comment a couple things. Yeah, so we have committees that we would love for especially community members who live out in the area to serve on, so they can be a part of the decision-making that happens, so we can create a good, effective environment for the community. That's really important to us. Like I said, we always want to be able to be good neighbors in this. I know you asked a couple of questions too. You had mentioned actually, I'll address the volunteers. So we definitely take volunteers. We're very limited on doing it now because of COVID. We want to be careful with people in the community, so we haven't taken them as much. Once it's over, we're definitely looking to get a lot of volunteer involvement. As far as you mentioned bikes, coming in and out, we're going to have a van, a 15-passenger van, and it's going to take people to one of the primary bus stop hubs. So if they get them bus passes so they can go to areas that they want. And we're going to do scheduled appointments. So if an individual has a medical appointment or something on the weekend, we can definitely coordinate that for them. Our goal is that they're not riding down the highway on a bike, and that pretty much they're staying there, and then we transport them into town and they come back. That's really what we're looking at.
Yeah, and we have a private road that the county won't take care of because it's private. But what's to stop people from coming down that road and going on our properties are all open? Most of us don't have a fence. We've never needed to have a fence.
It's the same.
I just now got a fence after 30 years around a small area. We were all on like 5-acre lots.
Sure.
So it's hard to fence that in.
So it's the same that stops anybody today. Nothing stops them from taking a bike ride down your private road. If you see somebody that you think might be associated with the project, we do have influence on the people associated with our project. We're happy to come right away and address that individual, find them, deal with it. If there are ours, we'll have that discussion and we'll manage it. If they're not of our organization, we'll quickly lose any authority or say, as we're not law enforcement. But we certainly want to care for each of our people that we serve. We're focused on their prosperity and health.
Are they allowed to have a bike?
If that's their mode of transportation. So I can tell you, we have collected so much statistics on homelessness, and about 1/3 have they own a vehicle. It's a licensed, registered vehicle. Over a Better Way, the way our process is, we make sure that it is their vehicle. We collect they must have a driver's license, a valid driver's license, and the vehicle must be registered and insured in order for it to even, it shouldn't be on county and city roads, period. But in order to, once we receive all those documents, they are issued a monthly parking pass that tells our security this vehicle is okay to be here. And so what we see is about 1/3 have a vehicle. And those that come into Better Way with they're working and they're able, because they're not paying rent, they're able to save money to quickly exit. Right now, our average is about 76 days to exit Better Way into permanent housing. That's amazing, I can tell you. That's great success. Our retention rate is about 87%. That means that these folks keep their permanent housing. 87% of those keep their permanent housing. So many have vehicles. Some
Better than a bike.
some have bikes. Some do have bicycles.
I don't, yeah.
I don't see a lot of folks, I can tell you very few at Better Way have a bike, because we do partner currently with Hands of Hope. Their van comes and picks the participants up in the morning so they can go to the coordinated entry site and take a shower, do their laundry, get their mail, and then they're brought back to Better Way. So quickly, they save money and they want to buy their own little car. So
Yeah. So, I mean, so our area really is not the right fit for what you guys are trying to do. I know you want to get it all passed and everything, but it's really out in the quiet countryside, which is why we pay a lot of money for those properties, and all our property tax and everything else that we pay. Maybe the county's interested in giving us a gate on both sides of that road, so we'd feel safer, because I know you want safety for your clients, but we at the same time would like it too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're right at about 90 minutes. It's 7:32. I'm double checking to see. I don't have any other online questions submitted, and I don't know if there's any more from the audience here. If not, are there any final words that anyone would like to say?
I'd just like to say I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I asked for this meeting as soon as we could legally do it, and Steve and Hands of Hope, everybody's been very gracious about coming tonight and answering the questions, and I appreciate the public for being here. Have a day for me.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Scott, for tuning in, and we